This is the Late Late Lunch Show with Rod Maxwell.
Supported by
Childbed Learning in Nature's Playground.
It's Rod Maxwell on the Late Late Lunch Show, and I have a guest who is musical and is from Altrincham, but is joining me from London, and she's been studying down at the British and Irish Music. Remind me, what does it stand for, Rose?
The British and Irish Modern Music Institute.
British and Irish Modern Music Institute. I'm speaking with Rose Morris, and Rose, it's colloquially called BIM, and there are BIM schools. There's one in Manchester. There's one in. Did you say Wales?
There's like Brighton, Bristol, Birmingham, all the B places.
All the B places. Okay, all the best. So, you are from Altrincham. And did you say to me you went to Loreto?
I did. I went to Loreto, the deck chairs, as everybody knows them as. I went there from year 7 all the way up till the end of school, from year 7 to 13. All girls Catholic high school gal. Yeah.
Yeah. And was it there that you discovered your voice, or had you known about it for a while?
I have always been very musically inclined. I think I grew up in a very musical household. I mean, I am the youngest of 3, so my older brother and my older sister both played musical instruments throughout high school, as did I. In my primary school, I went to St. Vincent's Primary School, and I was in the choirs there, and I always really enjoyed singing. The kind of person who sings around the house or would sing in the street as a child. I mean, and I didn't think anyone could hear me. I don't do that as much anymore. But when I got to high school, I definitely really fell in love with singing even more. I didn't even think it was a question of joining school choirs, cantamuses and stuff like that, and being in productions. I've always loved performing. I think that is just something that I've loved in every capacity. Again, I used to do dancing all the way through from 5 to 15, so around that age. And I did that for many years. And my favorite part of that was when we did once a year, the performances on stage. I think there's just something so glitzy and glammy about it. But yeah, high school definitely was a big part in that. I also really enjoyed doing music GCSE and A level. I think it's always been in me, that feeling of just being a singer and a performer. And I've tried picking up other instruments before, but I'm predominantly I just sing everywhere. I don't think I've got a day in the last 10 years that I haven't sung around the house at some point.
And is it something that your family has a background in, or was it easy for you to find your voice, if you like?
Yeah, definitely. My family, like I said, my brother and sister are both very musical. My dad is part of a band. He's part of Inhale band. Very kind of play in the pub, dad rock kind of band. But it's always been very much a passion for most people in my family, both playing music and also listening to music. I think that was another thing where we just kind of grew up in such a household where it was a race to see who was going to be able to put a song on, and when we were doing something, I would always, or who was going to play a song in the car. It was that kind of environment of everyone they loved music and loved listening to it, and and I think it's common, but I think it was so ingrained in our kind of family culture that, like I say, when we all went to high school and were learning different instruments and being in school concerts, that it felt very natural. It kind of is an alien concept to me, going to being in high school and not being a part of those things, because I just never even questioned it. And I think that kind of tells you a lot about my love for performance.
Well, we're going to talk about that love of performance. We're going to talk a little bit more about your singing voice and what you've been doing in London. And we'll also talk about what's next, because you're about to graduate. So today I'm speaking with Rose Morris, delighted to be talking to her, and talking about her love of singing, her life in singing, and what that will lead to next. We'll be back with her in a couple of minutes' time.
You're listening to the Late Late Lunch Show with
Back to the Garden Childcare, where little explorers grow naturally.
It's Rod Maxwell on Radio Ulti, and today I'm delighted to be speaking to an Ulti local, really, although now a resident of London, courtesy of being at the British and Irish what is it, music?
Modern Music Institute.
Modern Music Institute. I should get that. I always see BIM as just having BIM, but it's BIMM, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's how would you describe your voice? Because I'm used to the standard soprano, alto, tenor, bass, but there are different types of top voices, if you like. What is your voice defined as?
I would say if you're talking about range like that, I would definitely class myself as an alto. I'm not someone who's like going to be able to hit all the high notes. I think if you're thinking about the kind of tone of my voice, I definitely would say it's more soulful, kind of smoothie, soul voice. I mean, I think that the songs that feature that kind of sound really resonate with me and my tone because, like I say, I'm not necessarily going to be all about doing the crazy high notes, the crazy riffs. I like to focus on making it sound really nice. And so, I mean, a lot of the songs that I naturally gravitate towards are those kind of like soul-y, like 70s tunes. You know, like I love singing things like um Spooky by Dusty Springfield. That's like always a go-to one that I love to sing. I love singing something like How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee
Hmm.
Gees.
Hmm.
These kind of classic ones that people love, and I think they just kind of resonate with my voice type. Yeah.
And so when you were in Loretto, you were involved in choirs, you were actively involved. But when did you always think that I want to do this as part of my further education period, the sort of the classic university period? Is that something you knew could happen?
No, I mean, I remember it being like around the time that people were picking like what they wanted to do at university. And I was really torn between two options. So I was torn between doing a music degree in the sense that you study music at like Uni of Birmingham, Uni of Leeds, wherever, as more of like a listening and analyzing music in a classical sense. Um, that was like one option that I thought of. And the other option I thought of was because I trained for 6 years as a classical like opera singer. Um, that I remember talking to my singing teacher and she was like, yeah, you should go to a conservatoire and do like take that route of, being in performance, but it obviously still remaining in the classical genre. And kind of I spent a while teetering between those two options because every time I would talk to my like A-level music teachers, they'd be like, you should do a music degree. And then every time I talked to my singing teacher, she was like, you should do a conservatoire. And I kind of was like, I don't know about either. And then I happened to hear about BIM, let's just call it BIM, uh, through a friend of a friend who was applying there. And it was like a random one-off conversation that like I was like, I didn't realize that you could even study songwriting, sort of popular performance. I didn't realize that was even like an option. I think there's not often with schools a massive emphasis on those kind of creative degrees that you can take. I mean, I don't know about other subjects necessarily, but for me, I was never told anything like that was an option. Like I say, it was just completely by chance. And so when I heard about that, I looked into it on online, and I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, I'm sold. This sounds like exactly what the kind of thing I want to do. Because it speaks to me and like the music I like more, and I don't think that there would have been any point in me going and doing the conservatoire thing if I wasn't really passionate about
Mm. Mm.
classical singing.
Yeah.
Because it's so competitive. Every creative industry is so competitive and cutthroat. I think you really have to be all in if you want to get anything out of it. And so that's how I felt about going to BIM.
And my very narrow knowledge of BIM, because I've interviewed a few people who've been to the one in Manchester, is that it sort of takes you through both the technical as well as the commercial and the organizational, the operational side of the music industry, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of everything there is very, you have to be a self-starter. I think that you get out as much as you're willing to put in. A lot of it is, I mean, like any university degree, a lot of it's optional, but you can't expect to get the most out of it by just going to like lectures. They also do really good master classes with like industry professionals that if you want to learn more about, if you're, say, a bassist, they have someone who's like a bassist who's toured with XYZ artists, like loads of different. I mean, I literally saw one today that's come through that's an event, that's a masterclass about like when Noel Gallagher's touring bassist is going to come and like speak for like an hour. And personally, for me, that's not something that I'm into. But if you're a bassist, like, you kind of have to, you keep your eyes and ears out for any kind of thing that you might be able to get from it. And so it really is about what you want to do with your time there, which is not necessarily maybe like every other degree out there, which I don't know entirely because I haven't done anything else. But yeah, I think that, and also it teaches you a lot of skills that, I mean, I've done gigs over the last few years. I've in like London venues. I've had to organise rehearsals and other people for assessments and stuff. And it teaches you a lot about organisation, time management, communication, and adaptability that I think are really, really valuable transferable skills,
Yeah.
as well as useful for being in the music industry.
Yeah, well, I think that the great thing about education today is that the likes of BIM exist, the likes of, I think it's UA 92, and I can never remember if it's UA 92, 93, but they're vocational academies or institutes that are teaching people, and they have a more direct relationship to the industry that you could be in as well. Well, look, I'm going to take a break. I want to talk a little bit more about your singing and about what you've been doing and the performing and that type of thing, and sort of what that's been like. So today I'm speaking with Rose Morris. She's originally from Altrincham, now down in the big London at BIM, but coming to the end of the course, and we'll be talking to her later on about what that means and what happens next. We'll be back with her in a couple of minutes' time.
This is the Late Late Lunch Show with Rod Maxwell on Radio Alti.
Rose, you described your voice as an alto type voice. What I mean in terms of what sort of singing styles have you been doing as you've been going through BIM? I mean, do you go through a range of classical through to contemporary, if you like?
So the name of my course is Popular Music Performance Vocals Speciality. So there's no emphasis at all on classical singing or like musical theatre. They don't teach you that. It's not really designed around that. What it is designed around is kind of different genres within the popular music sphere. So you can say pop, funk, jazz, soul, rock, alternative styles of music. Like, they are all covered at some point throughout these 3 years. And so, I mean, for me, I'm someone who is trying to get into the events kind of singing world. And so really throwing myself into being as like spreading myself as far as possible in terms of what I can do, I think it has been really helpful as a part of my degree. I think that there are lots of people who come to BIM, and I'm sure lots of other music unis, and kind of go, I'm a metal like guitarist, or I'm a jazz singer. And I think for me, I wanted to kind of not define myself necessarily on, oh, I sing pop. I wanted to kind of be like, I can be adaptable, and I can kind of, really do anything. And I think that's honestly really important, not just if you want to be a performer, but if you want to be any kind of musician. I think the best musicians are people who take bits from loads of different genres and use it to kind of like make a whole new sound. And yeah, so I think that for me, I don't want to box myself into anything too much.
I sort of think that why box yourself in at this stage? Because then you can't learn from other people, from other genre or from other styles. And part of what you could be, you could be, say, a rock singer, but actually steal something or learn something through soul, jazz, whatever it happens to be.
Exactly. And I feel like all of the genres, like they're not so like clear defined like boxes.
Not anymore.
Everything is so like, if you're singing R&B, you also have notes of gospel and blues and jazz and soul in there. Like it's one big melting pot rather than going like I am a soul singer. It's like everything all blended into one. I think that and for me, I think it's really important to kind of be as open-minded as possible. Yeah.
Mm. And for some people, they might sort of think, well, what can you study about your voice and singing for 3 years? And but you mentioned there, I think before, I mean, your voice is an instrument, and you've got to learn how to adapt it and use it in different ways, look after it as well, and also how to. I mean, there's music reading, and there's, I guess there's the whole emotion of singing as well. So, have you been learning all of that type of thing while you've been down in London?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so much of it is like a lot of it is stuff you learn in lectures. A lot of stuff is things that you pick up through different experiences. I think one thing that I kind of felt almost thrown in the deep end is in my like one of the first weeks that I was there doing one of the classes was called Live Performance Workshop, and you kind of work with other musicians, guitarists, bassists, drummers on like a song that they've pre-picked out for you. But I had never worked with a live band before, and so that was something that was a real learning curve of like working with other musicians and kind of being able to communicate what you want from them, like in terms of I think you should do, this type of riff, or I think you should play this chord, um, and not kind of seeing itself as like I'm a singer and I only do singing. You kind of have to learn to work with other people, learning to kind of, even things as simple as like signaling for a song to end. Like it's stuff that I didn't even think about, and I was like, oh my God, like you know, the working and the collaboration aspect of it has definitely been the most interesting part for me. Yeah.
I mean, when you're in that band environment, just a little nod to the drummer or to the bass guitarist or whoever can
Yeah.
change something up, and suddenly you're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is a learning curve. Like, I mean, I think I think all the performance in general, to be honest, but especially performance with like a live band, because it feels like a lot more pressure when you're kind of like with other musicians. But I think performance in general, I've gotten a lot more secure in my ability to perform in any kind of context over the last 3 years. Because, I mean, the amount of times it'll be a 9:30 on like a Wednesday morning, and they go, right, you're up, sing this song, and I'm like, oh my God, you have to kind of be ready to get going, even if you're not in that necessarily in the right environment, or you've not maybe warmed up as well as you could have, and in you're in a a lecture room with five other people watching you and like being able to like kind of judge you almost. I think that kind of it skills, like I say, like not just technical, or can you sing these notes or do these riffs. It's way more about the interpersonal skills and the transferable skills, and that kind of like being able to kind of go whenever. I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
Well, I want to talk to you, take a break and then talk to you about the sort of the music industry and the environment in the UK, because I personally think we are fantastic at the arts, and but we're not always the best at supporting them. And it's we've got a lot of people who are very, very talented and not able to get in that streamline. So I'll talk. We'll be taking a break, and we'll be back with Rose Morris. I'm talking about singing, talking about BIM, talking about her life in London, and talking about what's going to be next in a few minutes' time.
You're listening to the Late Late Lunch Show with
Back to the Garden Childcare, where little explorers grow naturally.
You know, Rose, it's interesting listening to you, because there for people who are doing artistic or creative industry type courses, it's I think first of all there are more opportunities to do it now, and to do it, to be taken seriously doing it, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And you realize that it's a lot more than just the technical, whether it be art or whether it be singing. There's a lot more to understand about the essentially the industry.
Yeah, I think it's a complex kind of thing. I think it's when I kind of in before uni, when I was kind of performer singing and all this stuff, I think there's a very simplified version that lives in a lot of people's minds of like, oh, you and it might be kind of like what was true, a few decades ago of, oh, save up like a lot of money, book a recording studio, make a recording, and then you kind of, give it to your local radio stations and see if and that's how you build
Oh,
yourself up and
top of the
do
pops.
yeah, and like, gig and like just gig until you get, famous and whatever. But I think that is a very simplified, and understandably so, but like a very simplified view of it. I think what is so hard about for people who do want to be musicians these days is that it's not just necessarily about being good at singing and getting better at your craft. It's about, you have to now be your own like social media manager. You have to have a presence online. You have to be able to do 1,000 things at once. And on top of all of that, you probably aren't getting paid for any of it. So you have to get a job. You have to get a whole full-time job as well. I think it is incredibly difficult. And I have a lot of musician friends. I have people who are about to graduate. I have people who have already graduated that, I speak to, and it's hard. I think if you can only do it if you really, really love it, if you want to, have that kind of instability for the sake of your art, I guess. But it's not this kind of fairy tale of like, do do some recordings, do some gigs, and you'll build your way up, which is
Well,
unfortunate.
it actually frustrates me greatly that there seems to be the term "suffer for your art" seems still to be an acceptable term and seen as a necessary part of the process, and you sort of think, well, no, why would I suffer from art if I'm an artist and I'm doing good stuff? Why isn't it acknowledged? But it's not an easy career path at all, Rose.
No, I mean, and it's so hard to kind of get to the point where you're even making like half of a livable wage. Like for
Yeah.
example, I did a funk like covers gig recently with like a bunch, like 6 other people. There was like me and 2 other girls singing. It was so much fun. We did it in a venue called The Spice of Life, which is in Soho, and it was a ticketed gig. But the way a lot of gigs now are done is that you have to get them through organizer.
Agents.
So like there's loads of ones like Underground Sound, there's Hotvox, which is the one that we got through. And they like will all these event kind of organizers will like push you to sell more tickets.
I know.
And then tickets are normally between like 10 to 15 quid, somewhere between there. And for example, I think it was like 40 tickets, and then we got at the end of that uh, just about 100 quid, which, so we don't like, and it's, it's fine for where we are at now, where it's, uni students kind of doing it for the experience, doing it for the fun as well, kind of being able to kind of get some gigs under your belt, get footage, that kind of thing. But after uni, when you don't have that safety net of having a student loan, when you're having to think about, well, this is a Friday, Saturday night that I need to, sell tickets for, and you don't even see half of that money back. It's hard.
I mean, I've known bands that have traveled to the south of England and they're getting 150 quid for a slot on a festival, and that would hardly pay the petrol, in
Yeah,
the van. But you can't really turn these slots down because there might be a big promoter as part of it and you want to get in with them. But you sort of think, what do you have to do to make it? And social media seems to be. I'm actually waiting for the day that somebody takes somebody to become a massive star, and it's probably already happened really, who can't sing, can't write, hardly can perform,
yeah,
but they create this image in social media.
yeah.
It's
It's
frustrating when
definitely,
you got
yeah.
talent, isn't it?
It's really hard, and I think that the problem is with a lot with the way it's going now, because everything, like you say, is getting so expensive. People don't want to cover the costs of, like you say, things like even as petrol and stuff like that. I think what it ends up being is that people who already come from wealthier backgrounds like have that privilege because they have the safety net, and this is not it's not necessarily news, but I think it's annoying because you have artists like, for example, like Sam Fender, who, he grew up in like what, Newcastle or Northeast England somewhere, and was like, came from literally nothing. And he's like, I don't think that there are many artists nowadays who can reach
No,
up to that kind of level because
no.
like who come from nothing, because you have to think about how you're going to sustain your own life, and you don't have any safety net to fall back on. And I think that it's sad because I think I'm a massive music lover, and I hate that to think that there's probably so many amazing, talented people out there who we're missing out on, because of the financial aspect of it. But
Do you know, it frustrates me even more that, during lockdown, one of the things we missed was live performances, live art, etc. And, in the time since then, I haven't seen anything that actually then says, right, well, how are we going to promote, encourage, support such things? And it's massively frustrating. But I will take a break, and I want to come back and talk about what's next for you, because you've got your end of year, you got graduation, etc., and then I guess you're released to the big world. And I just want to know what you've got plans to do. So today I'm delighted to be speaking with Rose Morris. She's an Ulty local, now down in the big bad Cockney, studying music at BIM, and she's about to graduate in the summer, and we'll talk to her about what's going to be next for her after this break.
This is the Late Late Lunch Show with Rod Maxwell on Radio Ulty.
So I want to turn back to positive things, because it's so, this is my favorite subject in the world, actually, Rose, because if I could solve this, I would feel, I have two artists in the house, and you're sort of thinking, well, how can you make a living out of it? And it's so hard. But anyway, let's talk about what you've got planned next. So you go through a graduation, I guess, at the end of this year. That'll be end of 3 years?
Yes, so I have, it's 28th of April today. So in 1 month, 1 month and I'm done.
Wow.
And I am done with London for the time being. Not saying I'll never come back, but I am doing what most uni students do, which is
Come home.
Coming back home. But I didn't want to necessarily kind of just go, oh yeah, let's get a bar job or a cafe job or whatever. Nothing wrong with that, obviously, but more from the perspective of I've spent 3 years training in something. I would really hate to let all that training go to waste almost, or not kind of be the focal point of what I do next. And so about literally like probably 6 weeks ago, I decided that I was going to start up my own business of wedding and event singing, because for all my qualms with what we were talking about before, the music industry, one thing that never ever ever will change is people having events and people having parties and people having music at those parties. Because I don't think I've ever been to any wedding, birthday, any kind of party, and there's not been any music. It's like the sole kind of thing that really anchors any kind of event, in my opinion, because, I think it brings people together. And I think it's, when you're at a party and those kind of great end of the night moments where everyone's singing together to, like Don't Stop Me Now or something. And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to kind of be that person that can do that to an event. And that's where I created my business called Rose Morris Vocals. So very, very baby starter company, doing any sorts of weddings and events, singing. Yeah.
You know what? I think it's a class idea, because number one, take control of your own destiny, if you like. And people are, as much as I'm saying that the arts, I don't think have flourished as well in lockdown, I do think people are valuing art in a different way. Some people want, a piece of art in their house. Some people want, to do some singing lessons, for example, learn to sing. Some people would love to have, somebody sing at their wedding or their party or whatever. And you're going to be doing the latter. So Rose Morris sings.
Vocals.
Okay.
It sounds a bit more professional.
Yeah. I love that. And basically, you're going to start with what, a website or obviously social media or whatever?
So I have a website up. It's under Rose Morris Vocals. I have my Instagram and TikTok of the same name, just kind of posting content. I just want to get those first few gigs booked, I guess. I have my first event officially booked at Warrington Wellbeing Festival on the 11th of July, which I'm very looking forward to. And that's like a great event. It's at, I think, Birchwood Park, where it's just a wellbeing event where there'll be like loads of like activities, and hopefully the weather will be good because it's in July. And part of that will be me providing some lovely background music in the morning. And that's the kind of thing that I want to do, is just kind of like uplift everybody. And I love performing, I love singing, and I think it's the idea that I get to kind of bring that little bit of joy that I get from it to other people is a really great thought. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to kind of going ahead with this for the time being.
Well, I think, as I said before, take destiny into your own hands at times. And Rose Morris Sings sounds like a fantastic idea. That is the right brand, isn't it? Rose Morris Sings?
Rose Morris Vocals.
Sorry. Rose Morris Vocals. That's my short-term memory loss. Rose Morris Vocals, RMV. And so you can find that on web, and also you can socials as well, Rose?
Yeah. Currently on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn for all the communities.
Available for parties, for weddings, any event like that. Well, I think it's a fantastic idea. Good luck with that, and hopefully we'll pick up with you when Rose Morris Vocals is going great guns.
Yes, hopefully.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Very good luck. What's the rest of the year? You're a month to go, and then you're done.
A month to go, and then I'm putting all of this my efforts into this business. I think that is, if I can get to sing for people and perform, and that can be my job, I mean, that would be amazing. And I think that is just something where I was going to kind of do it as like a side thing, like a side hustle almost. And then I spoke to my mom about it, and she was like, this sounds like this should be the main thing. You should put all your effort into this. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I don't want to hold back and kind of, feel like I'm only doing it half-heartedly. Like I think it's worth it.
You got to fake it to make it sometimes. Look, that sounds fantastic. Very good luck. We hopefully see you around Altrincham sometime.
Yes, well, yeah, hopefully.
All right. Well, there you go. Rose Morris from Rose Morris Vocals. If you're looking for somebody to sing at a wedding or an event or anything like that, then look her up on the web or on socials, and she'll get in contact. Rose, best of luck.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to The Late Late Lunch Show with...
Back to the garden childcare, where little explorers grow naturally.
Back to